Hello, all you freedom-loving people. So, will Iran surrender and the U.S. remain in the defensive mode, or will the U.S. join Israel to end the conflict? And at home, Kash Patel is peeling back the layers of the 2020 election interference. Okay, let's get into it. On Monday, FBI Director Kash Patel provided Congress with an intelligence report about alarming allegations that are related to the 2020 U.S. election. This report included allegations of Chinese Communist Party interference in the 2020 election. The report raised concerns that China had mass-produced fake U.S. driver's licenses in order to hijack the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots for then-candidate Joe Biden. The newly declassified intelligence reports from August of 2020 weren't corroborated or fully investigated back then. Instead, they were recalled by intelligence agencies when then FBI Director Christopher Wray testified that there were no known plots of foreign interference ahead of the 2020 election. The documents have now been turned over to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley. Grassley was the first person who raised concerns with the FBI. Patel said, "We have located documents Chairman Grassley requested which detail alarming allegations related to the 2020 U.S. election. Specifically, these include allegations of plans from the CCP to manufacture fake driver's licenses and ship them into the United States for the purpose of facilitating fraudulent mail-in ballots. Allegations which, while substantiated, were abruptly recalled and never disclosed to the public." So what did the documents show? The documents allegedly reveal that the FBI had a relatively new confidential intelligence source who provided information in the summer of 2020. The intelligence source reported that the Chinese government was manufacturing and exporting fake U.S. driver's licenses. This was allegedly part of a CCP plot to create voter identities for Chinese residents who lived in the United States so they could vote on fake mail-in ballots. Reportedly, the intelligence source claimed that the plot was specifically designed to benefit Joe Biden. But allegedly, the intelligence report was recalled within a few weeks, and the allegations were never fully investigated because apparently the source needed to be re-interviewed. Yet, another agency found the same thing around the same time. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection intercepted nearly 20,000 fake driver's licenses around the same time that the intelligence report came in, which seems to support the report. A former New York State Assembly candidate allegedly stole around $162,000 in taxpayer money to fund his 2024 campaign. The candidate allegedly defrauded the state's public campaign matching funds program. Recently, Yin Dao, a Chinese national who became a U.S. citizen in 2012, was charged with wire fraud. Yin came in third with 5.9% of the vote, or 185 ballots, in the Democratic primary for Assembly District 40 on June 25, 2024. The money that Yin received for his bid was actually among the largest amounts that was awarded to an Assembly candidate. It came from taxpayer money under the Public Campaign Financing Program. So what is the Public Campaign Financing Program? This program is designed to encourage people to participate in the democratic process by matching small political contributions with public funds. But in order to do this, a candidate must fulfill certain requirements to qualify for matching funds. A candidate must submit contribution cards to the Public Campaign Finance Board. Each card contains the contributor's residential address, signature, and contribution amount, among other information. According to the criminal complaint, Yin is accused of submitting more than 200 cards to the Public Campaign Finance Board between June of 2023 and March of 2024, and many of those cards were fraudulent. Based on the complaint, the Public Campaign Finance Board asked Yin to provide additional information on the alleged contributors. The board also advised him to send letters of good faith to request information from the alleged contributors. The board then accepted Yin's claim that he had mailed the letters to these contributors, and the board concluded that the request for additional information had been met. The board then dispersed matching funds to Yin's authorized committee. However, later the FBI interviewed several individuals, and it turned out that some of the alleged contributors, whom Yin mentioned to the board, did not recall receiving the letters. The complaint states these persons reported to the FBI that they never contributed to Yin's campaign, never signed a contribution card for his campaign, and in some cases never heard of Yin. According to prosecutors, Yin now could face up to the maximum prison sentence of 20 years if convicted. On Monday, President Trump said that everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran, and he reiterated that Iran should sign a nuclear deal with the United States. President Trump said, Iran should have signed the deal. I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Early on Tuesday, President Trump explained why he called everyone to leave Tehran. He told reporters, I just want people to be safe. But he did not explain why he called everyone to leave Tehran. Due to the situation in the Middle East, President Trump left the G7 summit early, and on Monday evening, he returned to the U.S. from Canada. He requested that the Security Council meet him in the Situation Room upon his arrival. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced on X, President Trump had a great day at the G7, even signing a major trade deal with the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Much was accomplished, but because of what's going on in the Middle East, President Trump will be leaving tonight after dinner with heads of state. President Trump had previously been scheduled to leave Canada after Tuesday's press conference. So far, the conflict in the Middle East has been the focus of discussion among the leaders at the G7 summit. President Trump received regular updates from Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other officials throughout the day while he was in the Canadian Rockies for the G7 summit. After he joined the other leaders for dinner and posed for a group photo of G7 leaders, President Trump said on Monday, you probably see what I see, and I have to be back as soon as possible. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney told reporters that he fully understood the president's decision to leave early. French President Emmanuel Macron claimed that President Trump's hurried departure was due to a U.S. offer of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. But President Trump called out Macron's suggestion. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, he has no idea why I am on my way to Washington, but it certainly has nothing to do with the ceasefire. And President Trump previously explained why his sudden departure from the G7 had nothing to do with the ceasefire. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, I have not reached out to Iran for peace talks in any way, shape, or form. This is just one more highly fabricated fake news. If they want to talk, they know how to reach me. They should have taken the deal that was on the table, would have saved a lot of lives. In a separate post, President Trump added, Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Reportedly, the U.S. military is deploying more fighter jets to the Middle East and extending the deployment of other war planes, bolstering American military forces in the region as the war between Israel and Iran rages on. A U.S. official said that the deployments include F-16, F-22, and F-35 fighter aircraft. Two other officials stressed the defensive nature of the deployment of fighter aircraft, which have been used to shoot down drones and projectiles. Launching the drones is the offensive, while shooting them down is the defensive. In response, VP Vance expressed his appreciation for President Trump's maintaining the U.S. military focus on protecting both U.S. troops and citizens. Posting on X, Vance also added that President Trump may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. That decision ultimately belongs to the president, but I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue. And having seen this up close and personal, I can assure you that he is only interested in using the American military to accomplish the American people's goal. Whatever he does, that is his focus. President Trump has called for the Iranian regime's unconditional surrender. In a series of messages on Truth Social, President Trump said, we have full control of Iranian airspace, and he stated that the United States knows exactly where the Iranian supreme leader is hiding. President Trump also called him an easy target, but he said that he would not be killed, at least not for now. President Trump continued by saying, but We don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Some people suggest that President Trump's post calling for an unconditional surrender might indicate that the United States may be getting more directly involved in the conflict. This is because they question whether Israel will be able to completely knock out Iran's nuclear program without the United States joining the campaign. This is because the only way to knock out Iran's nuclear program is possibly to do it with the strategic bombers of the United States. These bombers can drop bombs that are able to penetrate sites that are buried deep underground. I know it sounds like a scene out of Top Gun. Emily Harding of the Washington-based Center for Strategic International Studies said it is widely assumed that Israel cannot completely eliminate the deepest buried parts of Iran's nuclear program, including the Fordo uranium enrichment facility that is located deep underground. Some experts even go beyond that. Andreas Krieg, a senior lecturer at the School of Security Studies at the King's College London, claimed that even the heaviest U.S. bunker-busting bombs might struggle to penetrate Iran's deepest sites. This suggests that special commando-style forces might be needed on the ground. But the Israeli National Security Advisor, Saki Hanegbi, said that Israel's campaign against Iran will not conclude without damaging the deeply buried Fordo enrichment facility. Hanegbi also said that Israel is in constant contact with Washington, but it's not pressing the U.S. to join the strikes. President Trump had another national security meeting today with members of his team in the White House Situation Room, but the meeting concluded after an hour without any immediate statement. Meanwhile, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, says that the Islamic Republic of Iran is collapsing and coming to an end. He said the Islamic Republic has come to its end and is collapsing. Khamenei, like a rat, has gone into hiding underground and lost control of the situation. What has begun is irreversible. The future is bright, and together we will navigate this sharp turn in history. A White House official told CNN that President Trump's social media posts urging Iranians to immediately withdraw from Tehran reflect Iran's urgent need to return to the negotiating table amid a tit-for-tat situation with Israel. But Iran has been urgently signaling that it seeks an end to hostilities and a resumption of talks over its nuclear programs. They have been sending messages to Israel and the United States via Arab intermediaries. Middle Eastern and European officials said that Tehran has told Arab officials that it would be open to returning to the negotiating table as long as the U.S. doesn't join the attack. Yesterday, we mentioned that President Trump said they'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. This confirms that Iran has reached out through intermediaries to de-escalate. Responding to President Trump's comments, Israel's finance minister said Trump isn't telling us to stop. President Trump is being criticized by some people for not stopping Israel from attacking Iran. Tucker Carlson said that it's not in line with the concept of America first if President Trump joins the attack, but General Flynn argues that it's precisely President Trump who sees the essence of the matter. He quoted President Trump's response on June 14th. It says, "For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace." General Flynn thinks that those who criticize President Trump are advocating a formula for a truly endless war in the Middle East. Stopping Israel from finishing the job will mean that some residual nuclear program remains in the hands of Sharia supremacists who remain and are determined to destroy both Israel and the United States. U.S. military will inevitably be required to contend with the calamity that will follow. During the fifth day of the conflict, again, several missiles were traded between Israel and Iran. Iran launched several rounds of missiles and drone attacks at different locations in Iran. And the Israeli military has said again that its fighter jets struck a key oil refinery south of Iran, more command centers with top commanders, multiple ballistic missile sites and launchers, and surface-to-surface missile launchers. Israeli warplanes are now able to fly freely over the capital, and Iranian counterattacks are inflicting minimal damage. Israeli leaders have little incentive to halt their assault before doing more to destroy Iran's nuclear sites and further weaken the theocratic government's hold on power. Arab diplomats who have spoken to the Iranian side say that Tehran appears to be betting that Israel cannot afford to get into a war of attrition and will eventually be forced to seek a diplomatic solution. While the war is escalating, there are also rumors of tensions at the top level in Iran. The London-based Iranian news outlet, Iran International, has revealed that the deputy chief of staff to Iran's supreme leader is secretly negotiating an exit plan with Russia. A senior Russian official is said to have promised to arrange a safe passage for the evacuation of his family if the situation gets out of hand, and other senior Iranian officials have even finalized specific routes. And driven by the news that Iran is seeking a ceasefire with Israel, global stock markets have rebounded after last week's decline, and crude oil prices have fallen. Investors are watching closely for changes in the international geopolitical situation. On Monday, Brent crude futures closed at $73.23 a barrel, down 1.35%. While the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.75%, the S&P 500 gained 0.9%, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed 1.45%. As the investigation deepens, more details are emerging about the tragedy in Minnesota. The story being told at this point says suspect Vance Bolter posed as a police officer on Saturday, and he went to the homes of two other legislators in addition to State House Democratic leader Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman with the intent to kill them. This was according to what acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson said at a press conference on Monday. The first place he allegedly went was the home of State Senator John Hoffman. He knocked on the door of Hoffman's home at around 2 a.m. on Saturday wearing a police tactical undershirt and a hyper-realistic flesh-colored mask. Bolter knocked repeatedly on the door claiming to be a police officer. Bolter can be heard on video footage from Hoffman's home shouting repeatedly, "This is the police, open the door," according to court documents. Shortly after the Hoffmans opened the door, Bolter shined a flashlight in their faces and said that there had been a shooting reported at their home. He then asked if they had any weapons. At some point, one or both of the Hoffmans realized that Bolter was not a police officer, and they were horrified to find Bolter wearing a mask. Bolter then said something like, "This is a robbery," and he pushed himself through the door, shooting Hoffman repeatedly. This is what the court documents allege. Then Hoffman's wife attempted to close the door on Bolter, but he shot her repeatedly, an affidavit says. It was reported that Hoffman was shot 9 times and his wife Yvette was shot 8 times. After shooting Hoffman and his wife, Bolter headed to the home of another Minnesota lawmaker. Fortunately, the legislator was not at home, but the prosecutor did not disclose the name of the lawmaker. Bolter then went to the home of a state senator in New Hope. A New Hope police officer was dispatched to the home to conduct a security check after hearing of Hoffman's shooting. He mistook Bolter for another officer and parked next to him. Bolter had parked his black SUV outside that looked like a law enforcement vehicle. When the officer tried to speak with the man, now believed to have been Bolter, the man did not respond, according to court documents, and by the time more officers arrived, Bolter had already left. Shortly thereafter, police went to the Brooklyn Park residence of the state's Congresswoman Melissa Hortman as a precautionary measure. What happened after that, we reported in more detail yesterday. After the shooting, police searched Bolter's SUV and found 3 AK-47 assault rifles, a 9mm handgun, and a gold police badge, and a list that is being reported as being a list of targets. But there are many things about the list that are not consistent with that conclusion, and many other details of the case still do not add up. Prosecutors claimed that notebooks recovered from Bolter's vehicle and from his house indicated that he had carefully planned the attacks. His supposed list contained the names of 45 elected officials, some with home addresses and some personal information. In a notebook, Bolter noted that the Hortmans had 2 children, and it included details of their residence, a large house off the golf course with 2 entrances that could be viewed from one, he wrote. These weekend shootings of the Minnesota lawmakers profoundly rattled the House and Senate members. One anonymous House member who has faced threats said Minnesota was jarring because the suspect went after family. We're gone 50% of the time. There are no lines anymore. There was a Senate-wide briefing on member security on Monday. House Republicans received a virtual briefing late on Saturday afternoon, and House Democrats will receive a remote briefing today. So, what can congressional security officials do to keep members safe? One idea is to force House Speaker Mike Johnson to give members' offices more flexibility in how they spend their funds, which Congress allocates to each office's operations. This way, they can hire full-time protective details. According to Fox News, there has also been discussion about scrubbing the personal information of lawmakers from the web or approving anti-doxing legislation. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.